Hey, Steve. Dan here. Todd, Dad. Snowy day. We didn't have anything better to do, so what the heck? So we got together, and we know it's really snowy where you are too, so we wanted to send you a little encouragement. I tried to leave a voicemail for you yesterday or the day before, and it was filled up. So again, thought maybe this is a good approach to go ahead and say howdy and encourage you and share some happy memories that we have of you because we all love you so much. I'm starting off here because I brought the mics, so I start off taking control. But other than that...
Dan, you mentioned something.
Yeah?
About his voicemail being filled up.
Yeah.
It must run on the family.
Oh, no.
Because Sundays is filled up. Becca's is filled up. So are you all filled up?
That's funny. Oh, dang.
My phone's good. Hey, Steve.
All right. Well, I guess I just had a few ideas jotted down here. I could start off with that. The first thing, this is bizarre, but that came to my mind was the Mighty Rambler.
Yes.
Because juxtaposed to the GTO, because I remember going down Lover's Lane, being pinned to the back of that seat. And wow. And you were so versatile that you even had the Mighty Rambler. So I remember I was crying because you were moving out, going to Laterno College, and I knew you weren't going to be living at home anymore, and I was going to miss you so much. So you let me drive in your car on the way to Laterno, and it was freezing to death. I remember that. I think your heater did not work. So you gave me a blanket.
I don't think you got there as fast as you would have in the GTA.
I don't
right?
think as fast. No, we weren't going to be dodging any cops in that thing, I'm sure.
But I remember the Rambler, too.
Yeah.
Because I had something to do with him getting it. Because if I remember, Steve, I'm not sure if I'm getting this straight or not, but I think he got it from a friend of mine. I'm trying to think his name right now. It was a green one.
Yeah.
And it was transportation for sure. But it was not exactly one of your wonderful memories. And maybe the fact that it got hit from behind and totaled, you may have thought of that as a good thing.
That's funny. Well, I'm going to just ramble on with little notes I jotted, and then Todd and Dad pop in there whenever you want with any memories you have.
Like ramble on? Like after the Rambler?
Yes, I'll think that I'm intelligent enough to add that ramble and rambler.
That was good.
That's why I did it. But no, actually, but thanks for pointing that out, and I'll take credit for it. So what else did I have here? Well, of course, this is a lot more recent, but I always remember how special it was, your 4 o'clock phone calls, and I hope as your health increases here to be getting more of those. Tended to be around 4 o'clock as you got home from your walk with your dog. I guess I put that note on my last podcast, but anyway, look forward to those again.
Yeah, I'm gonna add my 2 cents on that one because I also, Steve, you'd be calling me about 4 o'clock. I'd always know when you did, you would be sitting on a special chair right outside the garage door, and your dog would be right there with you. And so I always knew where you were, and you're waiting for Debbie to come, and then it's supper time.
But wait a minute, he calls me at 4 o'clock.
That's when I get called at 4 o'clock.
You get called at
Steve,
4?
okay, will you get back with us on this? Were we on a rotation or what?
Yeah, like I thought I was the one he called.
No, I was at 4. That was me.
Oh my gosh.
We were on a rotation.
Okay.
I'm glad that we're comparing notes like this.
But he probably called me first.
Steve, will you clear this up, please?
He called me first because I was his dad.
Oh, but I think I was his favorite brother, so I got called first.
You know what? He'll have to settle that.
All right, Steve.
All right, Steve.
Will you clear this up,
first?
please?
When you listen to this, will you call back?
Right.
And whoever you call first, we know is the winner.
Right.
Okay, well, I have another one that's actually extremely inappropriate, and if there are young ears in the room, they should leave right now.
And Dan, knowing this is Dan, he means it.
Yeah, and I mean it. No, but it was another thought I had. I don't know, but I jotted down, and I just have to do it. Dad's getting scared here.
All of a sudden, I'm tightening my belt.
No, it was in the basement where your bedroom was, Kenmar Circle, Minneapolis. And I know there was one echo guitar from Grandpa, but then you also had a steel string echo guitar. but for some reason I pissed in it.
Oh, man.
No.
Yeah, I did. And Steve,
you did not.
have you forgiven me ever for that? Because please.
Could you just say it was the rat's urine or something? Or like...
I could have said that, but I knew it wasn't true.
Oh.
I mean,
You can't lie?
How come I didn't know about this?
Well, I guess it's one of those things, kind of like with Dave. There's another memory, I guess, along these lines, but often I would sleep in his bed. I get to sleep there first, in golf.
Yeah.
And I would always put boogers on his wall.
Did he ever know that?
He knew it all right, because he
my
saw it, and I remember him being rather angry with the warm rag, having to wipe it all off.
Ooh.
Anyway, this has gone south. I should not be the one leading this conversation.
All right. No, that's true. Okay.
I'm not sure about the value of this conversation.
Like I said, it was stream of consciousness. I was sitting there writing down thoughts
And
regarding Steve,
mind.
and it came to mind, so I wrote it, and there you go. Let's move on. Well, I also remember, though, talking about the basement there, the Dave Clark 5 and the Beatles 45 CD, or 45 discs, on a stereo and playing those and getting introduced to music. I remember one album he had, Steve, and I hope you could correct this with me, always stuck with me, and I don't remember who it was. I mean, my guess was it Chet Atkins with Les Paul, perhaps? But anyway, it was these two guitar players, and they were dressed in white. And I think it was a full album. And boy, if I could find out who they were, I would get that album and listen to it again. But anyway, yeah, that was fun to get acquainted with the Dave Clark 5. Oh, catch me if you can. Mm-hmm. Anyway, you don't want me to sing anymore.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, well, now here's a special one, though, that I do remember. I had my spiritual formation beginning, especially with sitting in on conversations with you and Mom, and I would even be able to have coffee at that point.
How old were you?
I think I was like 6th grade, 5th grade. No, maybe it was 4th grade. It was at Bayberry Lane in Wheaton there. In the living room, that room where Mom and Gene Sonmore bashed out a wall before Dad got home to commit him to taking the rest of that wall down. It was those days. But then also in that, was that the Shasta trailer then? The trailer that was parked in the driveway at
I don't know if
Bayberry?
Shasta. It was a good-sized trailer, though.
Yeah, I don't think it was as big as that one, but anyway, often when the weather was nice, Steve and Mom would sit in there, and I could accompany, so long as I didn't interrupt too much. And I would get to have the big boy privilege of having coffee, which had a lot of cream and sugar in it. But anyway, I just remember so much listening to you and Mom talk.
Huh.
And that was so
Dan,
beautiful.
I can piggyback on that one by the memory down in golf. When Stephen would come home late at night after working, I think it was Al Phoenix, and so you would be parking on that one of the love seats, and Mom would be on the other one.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You would be talking back and forth for quite a while. In the meantime, I'd say goodnight and go upstairs, but you kept on going.
Yeah, those little old Wanabo days.
Another thing down there, Steve, just in case you forgot about it, I want you to remember this, that you left your imprint on our rug. And that was when you were working on a gas station, I think, and laying down. And you left your body image on the carpet.
Is this a forgiveness issue, Dad?
Well, this is, I'm not accusing you, Steve, but
I don't think he's let it go, Steve.
it does come to mind.
Dan, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
That's really cool for me to hear you talk about the remembrance of Mom and Steve talking, and you called it your spiritual formation.
Yeah.
Steve would know what you're talking about,
Sure.
but I'm really interested. You said that was very meaningful. What did that mean to you? How did that hit you?
Just that, to hear two adults talking over scripture very seriously and their personal religious experiences and reflections. So to be exposed to that at a young age, I think too often in families today, maybe there's, not enough of that.
Yeah.
And for little kids to sit in on that and be influenced by that, that had a real influence on me.
Wow.
Along that line, I have a remembrance of when you were, in that same position down there with the two love seats. Mom was there and I was there. You were there. But when you were talking about the faith that you had, that it was such a strong faith that, as I remember it, you would talk about having to be careful not to blind people in exercising your faith.
Wow, that's an
I may
interesting.
be paraphrasing that a little bit, but
yeah.
that's roughly what I'm getting out of that. And I realize you have a depth, Steve, of seeing things that a lot of us don't see. Because I think you're living, I don't want to get carried away on this, but already I'm into it. And that is, I think that you're gifted with seeing beyond this world.
Yeah.
I think so. He's got a real spiritual depth, and with a real deep knowledge of Scripture.
Well, along that line, I've got to interject here. I remember the scene around our kitchen table, the dining room, the kitchen table in golf. And as a family, I'm not sure exactly how we got into it, but there was some talking back and forth about meaningful things in a Christian experience. And all of a sudden, you began to recite a psalm. I think it was a psalm, continuing right through the whole thing. And I was just amazed to realize your memory, but also the fact you were deep into the Bible.
Yeah.
And you were memorizing, and that was coming out of your time alone with God down in that bedroom that you had in the basement. And that to this day, that's a very beautiful thing for me to think about.
I'd like to take us to Balsam Lake.
All right.
You know what my connection there is? Like you had, in case I ramble on, and we were talking about a rambler.
Yeah.
I happen to know for Steve, nature is one of Steve's favorite.
Oh yeah.
Steve, you know, one of your favorite ways to hear God speak is through nature.
Yeah.
And early on in our lives as kids, Balsam Lake was one of the first introductions to high nature, which was really cool. And the first thing when you drove up was to come up on the hill. Balsam was on a hill looking down at Balsam Lake, and you couldn't help but be absorbed immediately with the smell. And the smell was the northern pike heads and the bass heads and the sunfish heads have been cut off, but mostly those northern pike, because there was a fish house there where the fishermen would cut would fillet their fish, and that was an incredible sight and smell. And then you'd hear frogs because there was a field to the left on the other side, and I think it was a cow pasture pretty much.
You could see the cows out there,
filled with frogs, and that was one of the things that we absolutely loved nature-wise there. And I'll end it with just I remember for one of the birthdays for Dave and Steve, we were there for September birthdays,
right.
And we thought it would be really cool if we. I said their birthdays, but I remember giving Mom a birthday
It was
gift.
Mom's birthday.
It was Mom's birthday, so that's interesting. It was August then, so we literally filled a box, Dan. And maybe did you ever hear this story?
But I knew about the salamanders in the garage.
That was another great one to remember. In Minneapolis, we went through all the window wells to get the salamanders. We got to 99, but this was a box filled with frogs.
Oh, cool.
And I think, Steve, you have the better memory. I don't think Mom was highly amused.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember her thinking that was really super funny, but we thought it was very funny. And I remember being in the room wrapping it, and the frogs were hitting the sides of the box like crazy. And we couldn't stop laughing.
And those were Minnesota frogs.
Yeah.
And then you gift wrapped the frogs.
Yeah.
Well, that was sweet.
And then I remember getting our BB guns out and filling a box, a different time, full of frogs, and shooting the box and seeing how many frogs were killed, because we had no idea, because we were shooting the box.
Now, that's worse than the story of me peeing in the guitar.
Well, yeah.
I can bring this back to a little more order.
But then you remember us blowing up the mailboxes, Steve. Remember the idea was we were on the banana seat. I was on the back. Dave, it was something like Dave pedaled. You lit it. You gave it to me. I remember thinking like an M80, and I was hurt. I remember you telling me this is really important. You got to get rid of this right away. It'll blow your hand up. Duh. And we would open the mailbox quick, throw it in, and then the letters and the box and
I think that's called a federal offense.
I know, but we didn't think of it as that. It was federally.
It was
fine.
a different day.
You may be getting amused and listening to this, but I'm not sure
Just
whether
getting horrified.
That's just a start, but I won't go.
I'm hearing too many things that, to me, as being the dad, with a kind of an implicit responsibility for these wayward children.
Well, it does kind of show, though, the fact that I said I didn't remember that. Kind of shows an important family dynamic, though. Like, there were you three brothers.
Okay.
And you were, and then I'm 10 years behind Steve, Oh. So then Elise and I were kind of, kiddingly kind of talked about like the second family.
Right.
And so you'll have memories, of course, that I won't have. And then I'll have some memories that you won't have.
Yeah.
But Steve, Todd was talking about these frogs and so on, and nature and the smell that he was talking about, etc. And this brings me around to thinking when you were a very, very little boy, maybe 3 years old in Brooklyn Center, something like that, and you would come in because you'd be fascinated by some bug.
Yeah.
And you'd have to bring that bug in to show Mom. And of course, I heard about it from Mom telling me, and she would get delighted in this. But it just speaks to your nature, because I can't ever remember getting excited about a bug. maybe there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, definitely. So it appreciates nature so much, like you said, that communing with God in His majestic creation.
Yeah. Well,
let's see. I remember, Steve, you're framing in my upstairs, and with all the electricity. I mean, that thing was like cardboard up there.
Are you talking about as your present house?
Yeah, the present house. Yeah,
Really?
We moved in there in '99, but Steve came up for about a whole week, I think, and he.
Really?
I think maybe I ripped out the cardboard. I was good for that anyway.
The drywall?
Yeah, but Steve had to frame it all in, and it was tricky framing too, because so many of them were like triangle ceilings, in the 3 different bedrooms. Not an easy job, but anyway, turned out really nice.
It's beautiful up there. I love it.
Yeah, that was cool. That was around the time that you got your second GTO, Steve, that white one. Right, I think it was just after that.
Do you remember the time, Steve, when we're driving from Chicago to Dallas, from Gulf to Dallas, and I think you had David in your car, and we stopped for gas. It's about 100 miles from Dallas. I forgot the name of the town right now. It doesn't make any difference. We stopped for gas, but we're driving in the 2 cars. You're driving the second car. I'm in the lead car, and so Mom and I think with Dan and Elise, maybe Todd too. We took off after getting our gas, and then you were going to follow. But in that whole process, David got left behind.
Dave did?
David got left behind.
So this is like the Pogo story, but now an actual...
It's an actual story. And so I'm not even sure how I knew that David got left behind. Well, we had a walkie-talkie between us. We could talk from one car to the other.
Okay, now I have to ask this, though. How long did it take before you realized Pogo was left behind versus how long did it take before you realized Dave was left behind?
Who got the longer delay?
I'll pick that up in a minute, but I want to finish the David part first.
I like that question.
Yeah, but we got to have some order out of this,
okay.
Steve. But all of a sudden, one way or the other, we discovered that David was left behind. And there's that movie, Left Behind, by the way. And so then, what do? I think we drove back.
I hope so.
And David wasn't around there. And finally, we got in touch. I don't know what happened. We called the police department, sheriffs or whatever. And then we got word from the sheriff that they had him in custody down at the highway a few miles ahead of us, and they would be keeping him there until we came.
I don't even remember this
thanks,
story.
David, for remembering to have David in the car with you.
Okay, so now back to
the other thing you talked about is leaving Pogo behind.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Which one got the longer delay?
Yeah.
Remembering that, oh, Pogo's not here, or, oh my gosh, we don't have David here.
We got into a panic about
He doesn't want to answer it.
No, I know. This is revealing, I
It
think.
is. I think there's something here.
We got into a panic about David, but I never got into a panic about Pogo because
We were panicked.
I know it. Well, the family was really. There's another story about Pogo, but I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, we were at the lake cottage, Bay Lake, discovering that, and I'm not sure when we found out about it, but we knew about it then. And so we stayed the whole weekend and made a phone call and found out that he had been apprehended.
Right.
He had been found.
Yep.
And so on the way back, on Sunday, as we would be on the way back, we went to that place where it was the pen.
It was a pound, dog pound. I'll never forget seeing him.
And I can remember to this day Pogo racing up and down that
The
road.
pen. Yep.
He was so excited. I don't know that David was that excited.
See, yes.
That's a good turnaround.
There's a good. That's good.
It's not on you, Dad. It's on Dave.
Exactly. He needed to be excited.
He wasn't excited as Pogo was. That was a good save.
That was a good save. He really turned that around well.
That was
another
awesome.
Pogo story. And that is, we had a close relationship with Sonmores. And we came as a whole family from Chicago, Gulf, to Sonmores. And we arrived there late at night, and we were all going to stay overnight with them. And so Pogo came in.
Oh,
And Clayt was looking at Pogo.
He's not coming in here.
Well, no, when Clay says, where does he go in the bathroom? One of you guys said, maybe you did, Steve, he does his peeing right in front of the bathroom. In his case, on the pink carpet. So I think I didn't lose Clayt as a friend.
Yeah, but it went down a notch.
It was a test of friendship. And he passed the test because he allowed us to stay.
Anyway.
So what do you got, Dan?
Well, yeah. Well, what else did I put here? This was funny. This is just another silly little memory I jotted down. But, sometimes it was so fun and special just watching TV, with you, Steve. I remember in Dallas once, in your little bedroom back there, in used to be the servants' quarters, right?
Yeah, right.
And we were watching TV there, and I think I was sitting on his bed, and it was a World War II movie, and some guy was in a tank, and there was a grenade that had been thrown into the tank, and so Steve yells, "Get out of there, you meathead!" And 2 seconds later, the actor in the movie says "Get out of here. Get out of there, you meathead." Just a simple thing of how fun it was, though, to watch TV with Steve.
Oh,
Steve, you would be so engaged in things, animated, thoughtful, fun, and just a simple little memory.
Thing about that back bedroom, because it was a servant quarters bedroom, and there was... if you were going to leave that bedroom and come into the house, you had to come in through an outside door to get in the house. And you had a friend, I forgot what his name was. Can you remember, Todd?
My friend? Or Steve had a friend?
Of Stephen.
Oh, okay. No, I don't remember.
Well, I mean, the name would come to me maybe eventually, but I got more and more disturbed about this friend that would come at night. And nothing terribly wrong with them. You can help me out of that, Steve. What?
Augie, the guy who was shot in Vietnam?
I don't know. But he was from the neighborhood and so on. But I do know that as a result of that whole thing, I felt that we just can't. It's not wise for us to let it be that way. You and David share that bedroom, So what I ended up doing was blocking up that outside door that went into that bedroom. And to make that work, I had to cut through
Yeah.
the wall that connected that outside servant's bedroom to the rest of the house and cut through the wall and make a doorway so we'd go from there right into the porch area and then into the house.
I remember, was it Fraser? Where there's Todd Fraser?
That was my friend. Frazier was right across.
Yeah, and then I had the younger one was my friend there.
Really?
Was my friend Todd? And then your...
The name Augie rings a bell, though.
Yeah, he was, I remember him in the house in Dallas where he was shot, I think, in the Vietnam War in the stomach.
Really?
Okay.
And I think maybe he worked with Steve at the gas station. I don't know. But yeah, I remember those days, too. It was special with, the Village Inn.
Italian Village.
No, Italian Village.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd, you worked there.
Yep.
And I was so intrigued by that place. And Steve and Deborah were married there, right?
Right.
They had their reception there, or they were
Right.
married there.
Yep.
And then the Mr. Steak, seeing Steve there. And then the spaghetti shop,
Well,
that
Mr.
was so
Steak,
amazing.
that was up in...
That was in Wheaton.
Yeah.
Brownywell.
Glen Ellen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always fun to see Steve at his places of work. Well, that other place, too, where you also worked, as a manager along 80-90.
Yes. At the tollway. Yep.
Yeah, it was always fun to visit Steve at work.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Huh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember
kind of fun things to talk about, Steve, because as we do this, I just know you've gone through, we saw you in the hospital, and so it prompts us to think about things. And I'm glad you're doing so much better, but this is kind of fun to...
Yeah, it's just to realize, too, what a positive influence you've had in so many people's lives, Steve, that unless we kind of reflect like this, it'd be easy to forget. Yeah. So I think one thing, just like that motorcyclist who, I believe his wife was in the car behind him, and she saw him go down. And I remember that Steve, in some way, witnessed to him. And I thought you visited him at the hospital later and gave him maybe it was your confirmation Bible.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but along that line, Dan, one of the most remarkable remembrances that come to my mind was when you were working at Christ Hospital. And you had the assignment working for the credit department there, or whatever it was, to get people... get the interview so they could be admitted to Medicaid. And Chris, I forgot his last name now, was one of those that you went up to interview. And if I remember right, he had been in there maybe some 20, the number 27 comes to my mind, whether that's right or not, but he'd been in there many times for alcoholism. And I remember it's what you said to him one time. Of course, I know this only because of what you shared with me, but you something to the effect of, now I'm blanking out just a little bit, but do you want to, somebody can help me out?
It was something like, do you want to stay an alcoholic?
Yeah, right. Do you want to stay an alcoholic?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you got an answer from him, and then you said that you did it a second time, you did it a third.
Are you sure you want to change? Do you want to change? Something like that.
Mm-hmm. And then, as a whole thing, of course, you were restricted from being able to talk openly about Jesus in Christ Hospital. Now, that's a paradox. But you said something, anyway, he says, give me a call. And you gave him your telephone number. As a result of that whole process, he gave his heart to the Lord.
Wow.
And he became a teen challenge leader.
Yeah.
With an impact probably on many people's lives.
Incredible. I didn't know that.
That's a powerful
I remember
story.
people called him a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
get these dogs out of here. Get that dog out of here.
That's amazing.
That was Christ Hospital.
Well, also Chris Coffin.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he came to the Lord through Steve's stuff.
Campus Crusade, going door to door, and then Chris became my friend. Then he followed me out, out to ORU.
Oh yeah.
And then, of course, now he's still on the mission field.
Yeah, this really gets into a deeper meaning in which each of us, in our own ways, kind of reflect on our own lives. It's kind of fun to reflect on yours. I reflect on mine. How many people may have had a favorable impact on? I don't know.
Well, I remember another one where, was it Steve and Dave? That on Inwood Road, I think, at a creek, a car went off the road, crashed. I think it was on fire. And I think Steve and Dave, or just Steve, pulled, I think it was 2 guys out of that car.
Boy,
and after they did, that car exploded. I mean, it's just like in the movies.
Yeah.
Just.
I'd like to know about that one.
I'm learning about things from Dan and Todd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm done with my list of memories, but I could go on and on and on with, love you, Steve, and look forward to more time with you, more talks.
Well, another thing I can add, because I have a couple things in front of me here, was when you were around 13, 14, 15, whatever, living in Gulf, and you had that vision of end times, and you repeated it to me several times.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very powerful from you, and you, in that dream, you saw us being rescued. Oh, wait, now maybe next time I talk to you, you can refresh me on that one, Steve, because that was very powerful. And I know that it was terribly important in your life, not just as an incident, but as a message that has been a big part of your whole personhood. That's a kind of a sacred memory.
Yeah. And just we're probably wrapping up here, Steve, but following up with what Dad said there, probably my vision that I received, and we've shared back and forth that message of end time harvest. And I know you had a dream with you and I doing harvest together, and it's interesting. For a number of years left here, we don't know, but it's interesting how.
I remember too, along those lines.
What?
You had a powerful experience with the baptism in the Holy Spirit. And I think Steve kind of introduced that sort of stuff into our family. Was that through Beverly Hills Baptist Church while we also were going to First Baptist Church? But of course, Mom did very much also through Gene Sonnemore, and then Dad, you through Bill Bright. But having that baptism in the Holy Spirit, I know you had a powerful experience with that. I don't know if Steve was connected with that or not.
Steve wasn't connected, but we were connected very much in spirit, just not at the specific details of that date. That was when I was 15, but then at 19, I had that vision of ORU, kind of an out-of-body experience. But that's something that Steve and I have shared back and forth, that he understands what that's like. And then, because it was also the end of that vision, was the walls turning into grain field as far as your eyes could see.
Wow.
And Steve would connect with that intensely in his spirit immediately, because that's what he understands and sees. So we've always shared that as brothers, that concept that we don't know what that looks like. If we're trying to make all these connections with this world, it doesn't always fit perfectly, but we know the concept because it's in the Word, is that we're here for a time, and there's a harvest. And like Dad's mentioning, that Steve's influenced many, that's what we're here for. And Dan, as you've mentioned, and but we'll soon, all of us, so it was a blink of an eye, will be with the King, and then it'll be interesting. He's what that will look like. But
anyway, you were talking about Elvis.
Elvis? Was I talking about Elvis?
Well, you just said you'll be with the King. I didn't know.
Yeah. Dan, we need to talk after this, that there's 2 kings.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No,
so there's
I'm
King
sorry.
of the universe.
That's really inappropriate again for me.
Yeah,
I can't help
kind
it.
of reminiscing, Steve.
Can we end with an Elvis song, Dan?
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, thank you very much. That's good as I can do.
That's good. That's very good.
Very good.
All right.
Well, on a kind of a very serious note, at my age, I'm 94 and about a half almost. That's what I tell people when they talk to me, as I'm 94. I'm 94 and a half, really. But anyway, it's especially meaningful to me to be able to talk with you and then be a part of this with Dan and Todd. because it has a way of sharpening up my focus on what's really important. And so when I look back, when we're talking to you, it brings things into view that are something more than just the fun of anecdotes. Anecdotal references are important, but when you put them all together, there's a fabric there.
Yeah.
Very powerful. So you given us this opportunity to put it together, and we're the benefactors.
Yeah. And as you would expect, Steve, Dan has made this into a little studio. So I want to commend Dan for putting this together. It's pretty cool the way he does it. So thank you, Dan.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a simple one, but hope it comes out sounding okay. But we just wanted to kind of make it like a big, long voicemail.
Good to be with you.
Since your box is full, Steve.
That brings us back to the very beginning. Your
I have
voicemail is
noise on
filled
it.
up.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Talk to you soon, but I'm going to be the first 4 o'clock call. I'm assuming.
No, I think probably I will.
No, I think
You'll
I will.
probably, but if
Well,
I'm not
when I
home,
get
I'll
a-
probably call you.
When I get a 4 o'clock
I
call, I'm
think-
going to ask Steve, who'd you call first?
Yeah, I'm going to say, yeah.